What's going on, guys? Kiger here, and today we're going to do a quick ability breakdown for Scarlet Witch so that you know what abilities will be useful going forward. Let's get into it. Alright guys, jumping straight into it, I'm going to go over some important skills for Scarlet Witch. These aren't necessarily the ones you're going to use immediately on your skill list, but these are ones that you're going to want to be looking at and not feel bad about leveling them up. So first we're going to talk about the first skill right here, Hex Projection. There are two to really look at right here, and that's the third or fourth version. The third version we got right here creates a barrier, 20% HP, medium guard break, deal 500% damage, 30-second cooldown, so 15-ish once you got your full cooldown. And the other one is about the same. They're both AoE, same guard break, less cooldown, less stamina. So if you're just trying to spam the barrier, this would be the one to go for. If they're about the same, the barrier is the same amount, things like that. So this is a little about 10-ish. 10 and a half seconds for the cooldown. The other one's 15. So I think this one right here, if you're just trying to use the barrier more often, this is the one to go towards. If you're trying to actually deal damage, this is the one to go towards over double, and then you just really hit them hard. I'm probably going to be leaning towards the fourth version right here for the stamina, as we'll see some stamina numbers going forward. Next, we're going to talk about Chaos Magic 1 right here. All four of these abilities do the same effect, just how the animations go, the area of effect they do, they're all different. This one's super quick. It's 8.5 seconds, so it's 4.2, 4.3, 11 stamina, which is nothing. There's a damage for damage over time for 5 seconds. And as you see, the animation is super quick. There's a damage over time for 5 seconds, but the instability doesn't say how long it lasts. I'm assuming it's the 5 seconds because that's the only time frame it gives us. Instability, they told us it was going to be, they didn't specifically call out stamina. They said resources. And we see why that is here. Increase stamina consumption by 30% when using a skill. So if they go to use a skill that costs 100 stamina, obviously they don't. It'll cost 130. So if they have one that costs that much, they obviously can't use it. Consumes additional dodge gauge 30% when using a dodge skill. Remember, dodge skill and escape skills are different. Escape skill is when you use 2 dodges to escape from a CC. So it will not increase that by 30%. But when they go to use a dodge, which is 33% of the bar, it'll cost 30% more to do it. Not 30% of the 100 for all three, but 30% more of the 33%. I like that it's nice and quick. Once you get your cooldown up, it's 4.2, 4.3 seconds with a 5-second active time. It stays on them for the 5. So if you just bam, 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 it's always up. You're always affecting them by stamina and dodge gauge. Now, I know you're going to ask about if this does status effect. I do not believe so. It shouldn't with how things currently work in the game, but you know Netmarble, maybe they decide instability is too powerful. It needs to be status effect. Next, we're going to go into Language of Demise. So Language of Demise 4 right here creates runic alphabet around here, throws it out, does damage, silences, and turns them unstable. So 25-second cooldown, so 12 and a half, decent stamina, silences for 2 seconds when you throw it out, which is good, and then inflicts 2 curses. I don't know if it's one or the other, or if it always does both. I'm sorry, but this is what the skill does. Curse of Constraint decreases their attack by 25% for 6 seconds when cursed target uses attack skills. So if they use an attack skill, even the bubble is technically an attack skill because it does damage when it does whatever. Then they lose their attack. And then also, this is the fun one, it also does something similar in the Curse of Weakness, which you'll love. Deals damage equal to 10% of my attack when cursed target you uses attack skill. So if you go to bubble, you take 10% of my attack before on the top. Uh, inflicts a Curse of Weakness for 5 seconds when skill lands. Unable to dodge for 3.5 seconds when they use the dodge skill. So when you use a dodge for the next 3.5 seconds, you can't dodge again, which is very useful. And Alliance War specifically, because everyone's using skills or whatnot. So if Spider-Man does a dodge, uses an ability to get a dodge back, they cannot immediately use another dodge. Deals damage equal to 10% of attacks, same as before, when cursed target uses a dodge skill. So Spider-Man doing his dodge, bam, take my damage. And the silence, it's just a whole bunch of words going on right there. So that's Language of Demise. Next, Witch's Darkness. This is one of my favorite ones right here. Witch's Darkness 3. Same thing if you watch my Jedbaka thing about Doctor Strange, very similar. Decreases melee damage by 15% for 10 seconds. 30-second cooldown, so 15 seconds. It says 500%. It's not 500% per hit. It's 500% during the full 10 seconds. So if they only take a hit or two, it's going to be, 40, 50% damage in total. But you're really doing it for the melee damage decrease because Widows, Captain America's, Captain Marvel's really like to stick on top of you so you can take less damage. Next, we're going to talk about Hex Release 2. So this is not one that I recommend using right here. This is one I want to watch out for because it adds subdue keyword. I thought there was subdue on Black Widow somewhere or on Doctor Strange, but I could not find it. Let me know in the comment section down below if you can find it. But subdue, I'm guessing, is like a stun when their guard gauge is below 50% for 1.5 seconds. I like that it calls that out, calling out their guard gauge levels. I like that. Similar to what we saw with Thanos calling out your stamina levels. I really like this area they're playing in, and I want them to continue to do things like that, giving people that really like to focus on the game things they can look out for and keep track of. This is Hex Release. Now, Witch's Tongue. Witch's Tongue's an interesting one because there's two versions of it we need to talk about. First one is the one right here. Decreases damage received by 15 seconds for 5 seconds for all allies around you. Yourself and nearby allies. 15 seconds, so 7.5, 7.6-ish. Lasts for 5 seconds. So this is calling out a different type of damage decrease. Damage received, and the other one said melee damage. If you look at Black Widow and Captain America, they both have specializations that do the same thing, but they call out different things. So Black Widow calls out melee damage, whereas Captain America calls out any damage. Same as these two abilities right here. But because they're calling out different things, they should stack on top of each other exactly. So this is going to be multiplicative, not additive. Or I'm sorry with the words. But this 15 and that 15 should go together to be a full 30. It could be different, but that's how I believe it should be going. But this is you and allies, which makes this a must-have for group PvP. The other one we need to talk about right here is super interesting. 17 or 18 seconds with full cooldown. Recovers 10% ultimate gauge, which we'll see why that's important with what the ultimate gauge does. But what they don't call out right here in blue, but is in here right here, manipulates the time and space around herself to become invincible and recovers ultimate skill gauge. Cannot use this skill when invincible. There's another skill that gives her invincible, so that's why it's calling that out. You can't chain invincibilities. So I don't know how long you're going to be invincible when you use this. If it's 2 or 3 seconds, it still might be usable, but based off of how strong the ultimate gauge is, that's up for you to decide. Next, we're going to talk about, that's Witch's Tongue, Shape of Terror. Shape of Terror 3 is an interesting skill right here. So 13-ish seconds, release Shockwave, dealing AoE damage, and disappears into shadows, which is vanishes for 3 seconds, and then become invincible for 1 second. So 4 seconds out of every 13 seconds, you can't be hit because of this, and that gives you time to cast the other skills You can use those 4 seconds to reset your melee damage decrease, your full damage decrease, reset, go invincible again with the other skill, Witch's Tongue. That's why it calls out you can't use that when you're already invincible. So you can't go Shadowy Terror into the Witch's Tongue, but you can do Witch's Tongue into Shadowy Terror. So that's something to keep track of. Last but not least, we talk about the ultimate. The ultimate is battle. Some of them are always battle. Ones to look out for is Black Widow, says over time, doesn't have to be battle. We have things like Doctor Strange that says on kills, so on villains or whatever, you get a bump in your ultimate gauge. You got things like Spider-Man, whenever he successfully dodges a skill, he gets a tick on his ultimate gauge. So that she just gets it on battle. There's no like way to speed it up besides Shape of Terror. But what it actually does, if you watched my video with Indie Gamer the other day where we said, yeah, it does that blow up, but there's got to be some kind of buff after it. We were right. So Darkhold right here does the initial damage, 762% damage, and knocks them down. If we look down at the bottom, same with all ultimates, cannot guard. That's because knockdowns would go against their guard gauge, but because it's cannot guard, they will always be knocked down if they're in range of it. So it does the 762% damage, which is, whatever. Then the Darkhold, the actual book, stays around attacking, as you see above right now, dealing 35% of Scarlet Witch's attack. That scales. Then it enhances all 3 of your ability types for the next 15 seconds. It'll increase your Hex skills to do 20% more damage. It'll give your Witchcraft skills minus 15 per second cooldown, regardless of it says it right here, decrease Witchcraft class skill cooldowns by 15% for 15 seconds, regardless of max value. So as I'm reading that should be